Alien Confidential, we're back. My name is Tony Topping, the Britain's Paranormal 007, and here I am once again with the return to the show of Richard Lennie, and he's a friend of the show, and my goodness gracious me, listeners, has he got some excellent material that he's just fielding out there. Really good stuff, and he's to be commended for it as well. And he's kindly agreed to come back on the show. We're going to have a look at some of his research, what he's up to at the moment, and then we're going to get into the mystery of people going missing. So, Richard, welcome to Alien Confidential.
Hi, Tony, and thanks for having me.
Oh, you're all right, mate. Anytime. You've got that very posh Shakespearean type accent, you know.
That's right.
I mean, I do voiceovers, and your voice is actually quite good, son. It's quite good. Have you ever considered it?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay.
So I think I might.
Shut up, Topping. Get on with it. Right, okay, mate. Well, yeah, so Richard, fascinating material. I'm sure he's going to tell us all about it. And this includes the thing about people going missing. But Richard, for the listeners who aren't familiar with who you are, I know you're a UFO researcher, but tell the listeners that maybe are listening to the show how you got into this and who you are.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's Richard Lennie, and I've been a ufologist now for over 30 years, but I actually went public in 2011. And the reason I went public in 2011 really was because of my close encounter I had back in 1980. And I thought it was about time I started sharing it with people rather than just keeping it really mainly to myself. So in 2011, I started doing PowerPoints around the country. Also, not only talking about my experience in 1980 with some craft that I saw over my school.
Let me just stop you there, Richard. I've got two questions. Just describe to the listeners what happened to you there in 1980.
Yeah, I was coming home from work. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. It was dark. It was, I can't remember the date, but it was definitely December 1980. And over my school, I lived in a village, and over my old primary school, there were these 7 red lights in sort of like a half circle. Yeah, and they were in the distance. And I thought they were planes going away because they were red, but they were actually getting bigger and they were coming closer to me. So I thought, wow. So I stopped to have a look to see what was going to happen. And they got so big and they came really close. They were probably about 500 feet off the ground. And then they just stopped and basically in front of me. Yeah. And then at this point, my friend came around, Glenn, and he got off the next bus. And he wanted to know what I was doing. I said, look, Glenn, what do you think of this? And we both looked at this together. And the outer two moved up, went into like a semicircle, and then went back down into formation again. And we thought, oh, they're going to start doing some displays or something for us.
Yeah.
And then they just slowly moved over our heads, and then they shut off real quick. But as they moved over our heads, it looked as if the whole thing was connected as one big craft. Yeah. You know, it had like sort of like metal girders and stuff. It was all connected. Yeah. But as they shot off, they seemed to separate into different directions. No noise, nothing. But I will say, though,
let me just come in there, Richard.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued to know from your point of view. It's a question I've never really asked, and you might have an idea. These UFOs that we see, and believe me, there's a lot of them, and we are not alone. They go off, as you say. There can be suddenly one of them dividing into 3 or 4 or whatever. What do you think is the cause of that, and what's going on really, in your opinion, after doing all the research on it?
Well, from what I've seen since then, there are some that morph into different shapes, and then they go off into actual separate objects. So you can have one sphere that will change into a triangle, and then it'll go into 2 spheres. Yeah. So I've had that, and then I've had these where they look all separate. There's sky in between them all. They move up separately, come down again like they did in this particular instant. And then as they flew away, they all looked like they were connected, but then they all sort of went in different directions. So, yeah, I think they basically can be together as one big unit, or they can divide into smaller units, and then they can travel over a wider area doing that.
Yeah. So there's a possibility. The example, I suppose, the nearest I can think of technology like that is in the movie The Abyss. And that would be very true, because some of these UFOs have a maritime origin to them, come from bases in the sea, Richard. And I'm sure you would agree with me that the biggest joke of all is, we're searching for life, when in fact it's in our own backyard and they've been using Earth as bases. And I'm sure you would agree the other biggest joke of all is this one that they're doing in the media narrative, which is, we don't know what they are. I mean, have you ever heard so much tosh in all your life?
I know. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
You know, and you've got Louis Elizondo being wheeled on, Leslie Keane and all of them. Oh, well, we don't know what they are. Hal Puthoff, we don't know what they... What a load of absolute tosh. Anyway, Richard, back to the primary school and your UFO thing, and they were dividing. Carry on, mate. Brilliant stuff.
But as I said, I didn't hear any sound. But what I will say is afterwards, I thought, well, that's strange, because it was quite busy that evening because people were coming home. Like my friend came off the next bus. Wow. But then there was only two of us. There was no one else. And it was a village quite busy that time of evening. And I remember thinking that it was like the middle of the night. It was just the two of us. So we were in like our own bubble, if you like. No cars going by, no more buses, no people. It was quite weird. And we were there for probably about 10 minutes, maybe 15. And also, I only live literally 2 minutes from home from where my school is. And when I got home, my tea had been ruined. I remember my grandparents telling me they had to recook my tea. And I thought, well, that's odd, because I wasn't that late. Yeah. But I didn't think about missing time then. I didn't think to check the clock. Yeah. So I don't know if I was an hour late or an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. But I remember getting scolded for that. So there was obviously a bit of missing time there. We were the only ones when we saw this craft. There was no one else around. So, and this sort of played on my mind, you know, and that's when I wanted more. It was food for me wanting to know what was going on.
Were you like me, Richard? Did you become obsessed? I did. And everything I followed was a UFO when in fact it was an egg. You went through that phase, did you?
Oh, yeah. I thought I was being followed every night until I figured out it was Venus.
Really?
when we had clear nights.
Yeah.
Well, it was a star anyway. Yeah. And I think it was Venus, if I remember rightly. So it was a planet, not a star. But yeah. Oh, yeah, I had that. Totally. Absolutely. I went like you did, like you said. Crazy, yeah. I thought, you know, they were following me. I had this feeling that I was being watched. Oh, yeah, big time. Absolutely.
Have you come... are you a contact experiencer then, Richard? Have you come face to face with what is behind the UFO phenomena?
That I'm not sure of, Tony.
You're not sure?
Right. No. I'm not going to say I am. I'm not going to say I'm not. I will sit on the fence on that one.
Right.
Because I'm still not sure whether I have been, you know, like taken or, you know, or whatever. But I have been really close to extraterrestrial activity, literally feet in front of me. So I know the stuff's going on. I know it's real. But whether I've actually been taken, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Indeed. I think you recalled last time on the show that you'd filmed something, hadn't you, that you believed to be extraterrestrial.
That's right.
You had.
Yeah, the beams coming down and stuff.
Sorry, Richard?
Beams coming down from the sky, taking up soil and.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, just tell the listeners, for those listeners who don't know, that incident, and then I've got a couple of questions for you.
Sure,
go for it, mate.
To cut a real long story short, a lady down in Devon, I did a TV show, Rich Planet TV. Guy said to me in the car park, look, I've got this lady down in Devon. She's seeing a load of stuff. No one else wants to bother with her. No one else is interested. Would you talk to her? So I talked to her on the phone for about an hour. She sounded amazing. I said, right, I'm coming down. So I went down with my equipment. We arranged a date, went down. She met me from the station. I went to her home. And that evening, she went out the front of her home. She had, by the way, a big house with 100 acres of land. So I knew there was going to be stuff going on. Yeah. Richard, come quick. The beams are coming down. I've not seen the beams before, but there's beams coming down and they're taking up, I think, my soil from my garden. So I ran outside, couldn't see anything. So she said, get your night vision. So I went and got my night vision, switched those on, saw a garden. It was beautiful, all lit up because I got really good night visions. Still nothing, Tony. Still nothing.
Still nothing?
No. I said, Nina, her name was Nina, I can't see the beams. And she goes, well, have you got the infrared on? So I clicked the infrared on because I didn't really want to use it because it drains the battery. And bang, there they were. Yeah. And I thought, hang on a minute, I've got a camcorder with night shot. That's infrared. I wonder if it'll show up on that. So, because I wanted to record what I was seeing. So I went in, got the camcorder, and bang, yes. So I've got that all on my memory stick. And I got these beams coming down, taking up soil. And then I thought, how can she see them? And I said, Nina, so you can see these without any aid of equipment? She said, yeah. I said, well, how can you? It's in the infrared. And she said, well, the ETs are giving me the ability to see them and to see what they're doing, so I can see their beams. Yeah. And then After about 10 minutes, the beam started to move around to the back of her property. And she said, Richard, they're moving. Because I was still looking through my camcorder. And I said, yeah, I know, Nina, I can see. I mean, it's unbelievable. You couldn't make this stuff up,
No, you couldn't.
And you can hear us talking on the video. You can hear us,
Mm-hmm.
You can hear us saying that. And I'm going, yeah, I can see, Nina, I can see. And it just looked like something out of War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, I went to check in her garden. And sure enough, these beautiful round holes, 2 inches across, 4 inches down, all over her garden. And they'd taken up soil.
It's just me. And yet you're still on the fence, Richard, about... you're not on the fence about what you saw, but you're on the fence about whether you've had actual contact with the people behind the UFOs. I get that. And in your opinion, mate, because, I mean, you do know your stuff. In your opinion, what is your most compelling kind of UFO crash retrieval story where you can say, yeah, nailed it. That's very, very true. That is possible.
Well, apart from the usual one, which is Roswell back in 1947, which I believe is where we got carbon fiber from, fiber optics, lasers, because all this was found in the retrieval. Because I actually did a radio show going back years ago. I can't remember what the station was. But I remember speaking to the to the son, whose father it was who had the farm. And he had all this stuff. He had a bit of this material. And he said, Richard, if I close my hands, it all crumples up. And when I open my hand, it all goes straight again. He said, if you come over to me in America, and he said where he was living, he said, I can show it to you and you can put it in your hand and you can do that as well. But unfortunately, a few years later, he passed away. So So I do believe, and he did say that his father said that apparently these seats were made of carbon Kevlar or carbon fiber or something. And that's where we got the technology from.
Yeah,
the seats were still intact.
Yes. Look, for the listeners' information, Richard is referring to what I think is like the day after Roswell, and for those who don't know, that's about an officer called Colonel Philip Corso, who indicates that the Roswell UFO crash was a recovery that got back engineered. All the technology they took from that UFO crash, they back engineered it and repumped it into major corporations like IBM and so on and so forth to see the technology that we have today. And what is interesting for the listeners is that they came out with this term foreign acquisition section for Colonel Corso. So am I right, Richard? Foreign acquisition?
You are, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So it's a foreign acquisition section. And what happened there, listeners, was that Colonel Corso wrote a book called The Day After Roswell. And he had a boss called General Arthur Trudeau. And in his biography, he gives a few paragraphs that Corso was telling the truth. Not a lot of people know that one. And so we see, as you rightly said, Richard, our back-engineered tech as we see it today. And I think nowadays it appears that if you listen to people like To the Stars Academy, I think they're going under now, but all that kind of thing, or Louis Salazar, a few others, they're talking about UFOs being a threat, and they talk about UFOs, we've analysed it under the Advanced Information Program, where better attack, how do they attack, how do they do this, how do they drop better bombs, and there's just no contribution to medical science or ending poverty from it. It's all war. It's quite sickening to see. I'm sure you would agree, Richard.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
it is. And the thing is, these beings are evolved, and I just wanted to ask you, what is the, in terms of UFO contact scenarios that you've looked at where people have had contact with aliens, what's your most compelling one there?
Travis Walton, probably.
Travis Walton,
yeah.
Right? Yep.
I've spoken to him, and he thinks now, he has changed his story a little bit. He's saying now that when he went out of the truck, they were foresters, and they were on their way home. They saw this like glowing light. They thought it was a fire. And it turned out to be this massive, big UFO disc shape, your classic disc. Yeah. He got out of it to take a closer look. And then obviously he said he was taken inside. They grabbed him and pulled him inside. But what he's saying now is that he went underneath it and got electrocuted. And he reckons that they accidentally killed him. And so they took him on board to bring him back to life. That's what he thinks now happened.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably right, actually. I think that's probably more the case of what happened, which is why they took him. Yeah. Why he went missing for 5 days, even though to him it was only 5 hours or whatever, a couple of hours. So that's probably my definitely.
most compelling
And I
one,
think
yeah.
so. I think so. And his story's always stayed true for all these years. And I do, yeah, I do believe. And that's the
Was it
sort of
the
area
grave?
that it would be as well. I think if they were going to come down and check on something, I think, the wooded areas is
Yeah,
where they always tend to go. And
yeah.
it all seemed to be about right with the glow and everything. And back then,
Yes,
don't
indeed.
forget, back in those days, it wasn't so well known. I mean, the stories were going around, but not to the same extent they are today. And I think it holds up a lot, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I know when I met him, Richard, he was exhausted. He was telling me when I met him that he just collapsed
Yeah.
with exhaustion because this is the toll that the experience. If you're a contact experiencer, Richard, you'll get targeted. The recoil is horrifying, and it all stems from what the United States of America did after World War II with the UFO phenomenon, and it's not safe to talk about it, actually, so I'm not going to go there, but it is to do with that. And Travis, bless him, when I met him, he was telling me he was just exhausted. He was at a conference, and this is what happens. You start getting the mental exhaustion and the trauma, because a lot of, I'm sure you would agree. I'll tell you what, Richard, here's one thing I'd like your opinion on. Contact experiencers suffering post-traumatic stress disorder. Elephants in the room, Richard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know of one lady, I won't say her name, but she's been taken since the age of 5 up until the age of 15 stroke 16.
Mhm.
And she had to this point where she had like a twin personality when I used
Yeah.
to talk to her. I mean, it just does your head in, it makes you
Yeah.
do crazy things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally
Oh,
agree.
yeah. And the thing is as well, I think sometimes when you come up into contact with these beings, there's some things that they don't tell you. If you're face to face with one of them, they don't tell you that the sense of reality around you can start to warp.
Mhm.
And with that, you may have an effect where you're pushed back in time or pushed forward in time. Or in some cases, there is a risk, Richard, that you might go missing. And I think that brings us to your excellent research that you've been looking at that I'm fascinated with, to do with people going missing mysteriously. And I want to know the full Monty on it and how you got into it and your conclusions about it. Tell more, mate.
Yeah, sure. Right. Well, this is to do with missing 411, which a lot of your listeners might be aware of. And that's Mr. David Pilatus, who is a retired policeman. He started doing some research purely by accident when he was investigating some girls that went missing in a park, I believe, going back a few years ago. And it was a strange how they went missing and how they were found. So he started to dig into it a bit more, and he found out there was more cases. And so it went from there. So then this is where I come in, because I've been watching the videos and stuff, and he's made a couple of movies as well on it,
Yeah.
called Missing
Why is it
411.
called? Sorry to interrupt, Richard. Why is it called Missing 411?
Yeah, it's called Missing 411 because if you dial 411, that's the number you dial if someone goes missing.
Wow.
Yeah, there's different numbers apparently.
Okay.
There's 211,
Yeah.
there's 111, there's 311, and there's 411. It's all for different things. And then, of course, you've got 911.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, if your family member goes missing and you've got your phone on you, your cell phone, you tend to dial 411 first, not 911.
Right.
And then they will decide whether it needs the police, and then they'll deal with it from there.
What is interesting, Richard, what you just said in the early stage there, you said some girls went missing and they were found.
Yes.
So when they were found, what did they report had happened to them?
Right. Well, this particular case, I believe, because there was 4 of them, which is unusual because normally when people go missing, it's on their own. But they were found in strange circumstances, being that they went missing and then they were found again, but not for about 3 weeks. But when they were found, unfortunately, they were all dead. They weren't alive.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's
sorry,
why,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why I'm not mentioning any names or anything, obviously,
Okay, mate.
families and stuff.
Right.
But they were found as if
So
they were
sorry.
sleeping. They were like in a fetus position, and they were
Right.
on their sides.
Right.
And but they weren't. They hadn't been touched in any way. There was no marks on them.
Right.
Their feet were all clean. They had,
Yeah.
they hadn't like been walking, but they had no clothes on, no shoes, nothing. And this was strange. And so, of course, when they sort of dug into it a bit more, they said that they'd only been probably dead for about sort of 14, 15 hours, but they'd been missing for 3 weeks, sorry. So where were they for those last 3 weeks,
Yeah.
And they were found, this is the strange thing, they were found in an area that had been searched hundreds of times. They had the blood-covered dogs out searching, which can smell the scent.
Yeah.
They had the SAR, search and rescue, out. They had helicopters.
Yeah.
They couldn't find them anywhere. But when they were eventually found by some hikers, that they said, well, we've been over that many, many times with the dogs, with helicopters. We've walked over that area and they weren't there. So something or someone had placed them there weeks later. So anyway, so then he started to do his research, and then he found out there was a lot of links between all this.
Yes.
So, and this was in a national park. I believe it was Yosemite. And apparently, out of all the places people going missing, Yosemite, for some reason, is the biggest one. That's
Why
the
do you think that is, Richard?
Biggest cluster. Well, I think that one of the main reasons is because probably out of all the parks, that seems to be the one with the biggest amount of granite boulders. Because when bodies are found, or when people are found either alive or dead, they're found by boulders, and they're always found near water. 9 times out of 10, they're always found by boulders or near water. We don't know why, but they are, yeah. And they're graphite boulders. And I found something out because I thought, well, maybe the graphite boulders might have something to do with this, because they're always found on top of boulders or by boulders, or in an area where there are those. And apparently in Iceland, they believe that entities live in these boulders, and they have done for centuries. So what they do is, if they're building roads in Iceland and you've got boulders in the way, they won't do what we do and bring in diggers and move the boulders. They build the road around the boulders. They leave the boulders where they are. And I found that fascinating. So they actually believe that there are entities that live in there, and if they move the boulders, they'll come out and they'll hunt them down. That's what they believe.
Is there cases in Iceland of people missing then, Richard?
Yes. And I thought I'd just do a bit of research on Iceland, and bang, big time.
Oh, come on, kiddo. What fascinating.
But the problem is with Iceland, because of obviously where it is, a lot of people go out to get a newspaper and never come back. And it could be because of the fact that they've fallen through a hole in the ice, or they've, or whatever. I mean, this is common, obviously.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where so many people were going missing in Iceland, they had to bring the FBI in. And
Good grief.
Yes, which they don't normally do unless children are involved. If grown-ups go missing, the FBI are not interested.
Yes.
So if grown-ups go missing and the FBI come in, you take notice.
Yes.
Because you think, well, hang on a minute, this is not the norm. This is not the normal MO,
Yeah.
So they flew in and were there for 2 weeks. And we don't exactly know what they were doing, but they were obviously researching. And then they went again, and their plane and flew off, and that was that. So
you haven't heard anything on the sly about it then, Richard? Any snippets of information about it? Nothing at all?
No.
Just not a thing.
I will say this. A lot of people that go missing in national parks in America, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, the FBI just turn up. They're not informed. The police don't ask them to come down.
Good
and it's
grief.
adults, that are not children. We're talking male adults, in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And then the next thing you know, 2 FBI agents are there getting out of their cars. And you're thinking, what are they doing here?
Yes. That's very interesting.
And also, how did they know? How did they know that they had a mysterious missing person case? Because nobody told them. As far as
you think
they were aware.
What do you think is going on there?
I did a bit more research because I wanted to know why and how the FBI were finding out about these cases and why they were coming for grown-ups, not children only. And I think it's a possibility that they've got a satellite set up in space that are looking down on these national parks with very, very high-tech FLIR equipment. And they can zoom in, and they've got this thing going, I believe, where they will be able to see when somebody goes missing. They've got this, this like device thing, and then it comes up red flags or whatever, and they get a heads up, and then they go in and find out more. So I think satellites might have something to do with it. Not sure. I've only just started researching
Looking
this.
at
So.
it, yeah, indeed. Is there anybody, Richard? I know there was a case in Indonesia, that I was. It's on my YouTube page somewhere. It's a Whitley Strieber interview
Right.
about a group of radio engineers who had gone to Indonesia to set up a radio station, and in this part of Indonesia, people were going missing. The locals advised the radio engineers that were setting up the station do not wear bright clothes because they said that I think it was the jinn will get you. And one radio engineer didn't obey that rule and he wore bright clothing, and sure enough, he got hit. And I understand that he didn't disappear, but he was very ill and projectile vomiting. But there is the case in Indonesia, in this zone what I'm talking about, where people have gone missing and come back again to tell the tale of the fact that they'd gone into some sort of parallel world whereby there was animals like big deer out there, and it was just in another world, and they didn't know where the hell they were, and then they were put back again. There is therefore, do you think, Richard, the tracking technology available to actually, what you're saying is to actually witness that then, is that correct?
Yeah, I do believe so. What I'm also researching at the moment, because I'm trying to, because there's so much. I mean, I haven't even told you half of what's going on at the moment. There's so much that's weird about people that go missing. It's not just the fact they're going missing, but how it links. Like you can have 3 people go missing in a month in the same national park. They don't know each other, but all have the same surname, or their surnames will be will either be exactly the same surname, so they'll all have Brown, all have Smith, or whatever, or it'll be something that sounds like Brown or sounds like Smith. They'll all be between the ages of 30 and 40. They'll all have PhDs. They'll all be doctors, nurses, or dentists. I mean, you just couldn't make this stuff up, honestly, Tony. I mean, and this is, again, it's just the start of it.
Time travel, do you think it's time travel related?
Well, I think maybe that they're being tracked. And I don't know whether they're being chosen, cherry-picked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I think, you see, that it's hard to explain, but you don't just go into a national park and then you just go missing. I believe that when these people go into national parks, they're going into it not just because they want to go there, but they have this urge, this feeling to go there. And they don't know why, and they go there anyway, and they think, well, I'm going to enjoy myself while I'm here. But like Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
yes,
when all those people around the world wanted to go to Devil's Tower,
yes,
they didn't know why. They were drawing it, they were making models of it, and had this urge to go there, didn't they?
Yes, you did.
And I know people do say that these films give you snippets of what's really going on out there.
Correct.
I do believe that, actually.
Yes.
Well, I think it's like that. I think personally, you get a feeling, and then you go, and then you're with a group of, say, 3 or 4 people, and then you just go, oh, my feet are hurting me. I'll catch you up in a minute. And they go, okay, well, we'll go down to the end of this trail, and we'll wait for you. And I'll say to you guys, yeah, okay, so you go on. I'm there. I'm sitting on a rock. My feet are hurting me. Anyway, an hour goes by. I don't go back to the 3 guys. And they're thinking, where is he? Where's Richard gone? Let's go back and get him. So we go back, and I'm not there. They look for me. I'm nowhere to be found. No clothes, no shoes, no nothing. There's no me. So they go back down. They tell the park reserve people, and they then phone up either 411 or whatever they do. And then the next thing you know, the sheriffs arrive, and then the police arrive. And the next thing you know, SARS arrive, search and rescue, and they've got helicopters in the air, and they search for you for 2-3 weeks. And then that's it. They give up the search. But out of all these, Tony, and this is something that I find fascinating, every time, and I mean this, every time someone goes missing mysteriously, guess what happens as soon as they go missing? And I mean this, within minutes or within an hour of them going missing. The weather changes. It goes really bad. So you've got blue sky. It's usually, when people go missing, by the way, when they go missing mysteriously, it's usually the late afternoon, early evening. I don't know why, but it's always around about 4 o'clock onwards that they seem to go missing. If they're going to go missing mysteriously, this is the time they tend to go missing. Lovely day, beautiful, beautiful weather. But then, as soon as they've realised that their friend or their mother, father, or their son's not around where he should be, they go back down to get the people to search for them. The weather then changes. You've got dark clouds. You'll get hailstorms. You'll get thunderstorms. You'll get snow. You'll get high winds. You'll get, you just, like I said before, you couldn't make this stuff up. And what that does, of course, it hinders the search, doesn't it?
Yes.
You can't put a helicopter up, can you?
No.
The dogs can't really sniff the scent.
No.
And of course, all this bad weather is not helping.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is what happens every single time.
It's incredible, Richard.
Yeah.
But you said it gets weird, and then you said remarks to the effect of you've no idea how weird it gets. Let's take a blue pill with the listeners. Let's see how deep it goes. How weird are you going to go with it, Richard? Tell us more. What's really weird?
What's really
weird?
It's
not weird enough already, what you've told us.
How far do you want me to go with it? Okay.
Yeah. Go deep, mate. I can handle it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's been, like I said, there's people like with PhD and, doctors and nurses and stuff like that. They all seem to have like high profile jobs that go missing. Yeah. But also people that are impaired, that can't walk, that are in wheelchairs, they go missing too. I mean, whatever it is whatever it is that's taking them, it's not, it doesn't discriminate. Right. Young, old, black, white, it doesn't matter. They don't discriminate.
Right.
You can be in a wheelchair, you can be totally impaired, But the interesting thing with that is if you have an impaired child who can't speak, communicate in the normal way, they are sometimes found, and they're found alive. But get this, they're in their wheelchair still, but they've covered 30 miles, and they're found halfway up a mountain on a very big ledge. And the helicopter sees this thing on this ledge. They come in, and it's somebody in a wheelchair. Yeah. How the hell did he get up there?
What do you reckon's going on then, Richard? It sounds like the modus operandi of something in a UFO that's a little bit dodgy to me. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you read the reports, and the thing is with these reports as well, they don't always let the reports out, and that's another thing. They you ask the Forestry Commission, can you give me a list of everyone that's gone missing in the last year?
Yeah.
They'll say, yeah, okay, Mr. Lennie, we'll do that for you. Why do you want it? And I'll say, I'm doing research. Okay, just send us $36,000 in the post, and we'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, you take that as read. Yeah.
Has anybody like what happened in Indonesia? Some hitchhikers went missing, and they returned. But that was their testimony was that they'd gone into another world, and they were very lucky. They had a lucky escape. Has anybody survived this missing to explain what had happened to them?
Good question, Tony. And apparently there have been a couple. One we can't interview, we can't get to because of legal reasons. They won't say with the reason why, but we're not allowed to speak to this person. We can't contact them if they're on social media, which they probably aren't anyway. But there's this one chap, and he was going for a walk in, I believe it was Yosemite, and he was on his own. He wasn't with anyone. He said he walked around this corner where there was a load of boulders. Remember the boulders? And there was a ring, so we're near water. He said it was a lovely day. It was mid-afternoon, so between 3 and 4 o'clock. He said all of a sudden it went really dark, and he had a gut feeling that he shouldn't walk any further. So he turned around and went back. And then afterwards, he discovered the missing 411 on the internet, read some of the stories, and went, oh, my God, this sounds like this could have happened to me. If I carried on walking, I could have been another victim of the missing 411.
Yes. Where do you think, Richard? I've had 40 years of extreme paranormal experiences. I really, really have had it sharp. And I don't talk about it much when I'm interviewing guests because it's about you. But in terms of my own experiences, I know for a fact that there is a parallel universe running alongside us that is human occupied. It freaked me out more than the UFO stuff. It's real. And they described in the experience, we won't go into too much detail but they described something termed the Iron Curtain, as if there is a borderline between us and them, and whoever put it there, that's the mystery. Whoever put this there is a mystery. Do you think there's any links between what you're talking about and possible abduction into a parallel universe like that? Or do you think it's more alien orientated?
That's a very good question. And even though I'm a ufologist, and obviously aliens is the first thing I thought about, but I will say this: I do like that theory that you just said.
Yeah.
I do believe there is, a multi-dimensional thing going on here.
Yeah.
But with one of these movies, there's Missing 411 and there's Missing 411 The Hunted. Now, on the Hunted movie, the last part of the movie, because they're talking about hunters now with guns, with rifles, they're going missing. Because when people were going missing to begin with, if you had a sidearm or a weapon, apparently you didn't go missing. You were safe. The gun seemed to be a sort of like a barrier around you. It protected you. But then all of a sudden, about 2 years ago, people with the firearms were also going missing. So that doesn't seem to help anymore. It doesn't seem to protect. So hunters are going missing now as well, even with firearms. Right. And it was one of these hunters that went missing. The rest of them were trying to find him.
Yeah.
And the lady, the wife of the husband that went missing, she said she had to stop because she thought, and she could only describe it as Predator from the movie, it looked like there was something in the trees and it was moving from tree to tree, but she couldn't see what it was, but the leaves and everything were moving like it had a shape of a body. And it looked just like there was something cloaked, and it was moving from tree to tree, and it was big and it was fast.
Good God.
She said she just saw it, and then that was it. And she said when she saw it, all the animals in the forest went quiet because she noticed that first, everything went quiet, and then she called it a predator because that's how she could describe it from the movie Predator.
Yes. And why is it, Richard? Sorry, was I interrupted? Do carry on, mate.
Yeah, and I think, if there is something like that, maybe you don't see it, you can't smell it, it doesn't seem to make any noise, but as soon as it touches you, you then become the same as it. So you then become invisible. So in other words, what I'm saying is you and me could be in one of these parks. I look away to talk to another friend, turn back to you, and you're gone. Well, you're not gone. You are still there, but it's got you, and it looks like you've gone. And this is what's happening. They are literally disappearing right next to you as well. You don't have to walk away and you have a rest and then we come back and you're gone. That does happen, by the way, but like I said earlier. But you can also be right next to your family. You could be literally feet away, and you'll just go like that. Right. And you can see for miles. So there's no way you can run off because I see you running off. So that does make sense, doesn't it?
Just absolutely
incredible
stuff, Richard.
There was a young boy that went missing. He was with his grandparents, and they had one of these motorhomes, and he was bouncing a ball. The grandfather turned away from the child to speak to his wife. He turned back. The ball was still bouncing. The child had gone. And where did he go? He couldn't have gone anywhere. He was gone, literally vaporized, like he was just taken, disappeared.
Completely. Do you know if any highly trained remote viewers who would have, how can I put it, Richard? There's a certain level in all this where you can, you have what I call an eighth sense, an eighth ability. Yes. You have to be very cautious of it, whereby you would get telepathic bursts of consciousness from those people. So they might be alive, and the source of the brain that kind of, in simple terms, the source of the brain that signals telepathy. For example, when somebody is deceased and passes over, you'd still hear their consciousness at some level. It would be in a different realm. They'd be able to signal to you. Do you know if any remote viewers or clairvoyants or psychic have had contact with those people who were missing?
Brilliant question. And one has. Only one, though. Only one, because David's actually put out there. He said, look, I'll make you famous. If you can prove to me that you know where these people are, I'll do anything for you, absolutely anything. No one's come forward, but there was one chap who contacted the police. It must have been months later. A young lad went missing in one of the parks. Couldn't find him. Obviously, the usual story. They searched for weeks and weeks. There was a massive, massive search. Couldn't find him. He had this dream. This guy had this dream about where this guy was lying in near some boulders, near a river, and there was trees, and he knew where this place was because it was fairly close to where he lived. And he thought, what do I do? Do I phone the police? And he thought, I'm going to look stupid, And they were just basically in the papers. They were saying that if you know of anything, please contact us. So he phones the police and he tells the police that he's had this dream.
Yeah.
And he described the area of where he saw this person lying.
Yes.
And the policeman said, I know where that is. We've already searched that place before. I'm sure of it. So anyway, he goes there again just to double check. And yeah, sure, there he was. So, and the guy comes down and, obviously he was able to cover his story. He had nothing to do with it. But he had lots of witnesses to say he wasn't even in the area at the time. But yeah, he had this dream and they went through with it, and yeah, they found the person. Unfortunately,
and what did this person say about where he'd been? They found him, did you say?
Yeah.
So what did he say about where he'd been or what he had experienced?
He wasn't alive, unfortunately. This was the problem. He was deceased. So this is it. But they knew where he could see where he was. But it was weeks later, maybe even months later.
Right. So nobody has got any, how can I put it, mediumship, clairaudient type signals from anyone as to what happened from the other side. No, that's not happened either.
That's not happened either. No, I have done some more research on, because I was thinking, have they all got the same blood group? Have they all? I mean, it's quite funny, Tony. I was trying to think, how would Sherlock Holmes? Because wouldn't it be great if we had a real Sherlock Holmes right now? We could get him. Yeah, exactly. And I thought, what would he do? And the first thing he would do would be probably checking stuff. Do they all have the same blood group? What, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And I thought, what about checking for stuff like in their bodies and that? Were they had a certain drug or something like that? Maybe. Yes. And I delved into it a bit deeper, and boy, did I find something interesting.
Go ahead.
Right, there is a drug called GHB. GHB. It's a date drug apparently used, and it basically you put it into a drink and it makes you tired, and then obviously you take your victim away. Well, apparently a lot of this is found in their system. So, but the thing is, when they have the post-mortem, they don't check for it. So you have to actually ask them to check for it, and then they'll check for it. And every time they have checked for GHB, it's in the system. And it's been in the system for the last 36 hours, no more. So this person who's been found deceased could have been gone for like months, literally months. I'm talking months now, maybe even a year. They're found eventually, and they still look pretty much all together. They don't look like they've been through hell and back. The post-mortems, and they can't always find, by the way, the reason for the death.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't. So they'll either make it up or they'll just say, we don't know. But if the parents of that person has asked, or wife or husband of that person's asked them to check for GHB, it's found in the system. And it's been in the system for the last 36-ish hours. How is that possible?
Wow.
Every time.
Well, that would be a human drug, is it, Richard?
Yeah.
A human drug?
Apparently, it makes you tired and you fall asleep.
So it's actually a drug that is found within our population, is used by human beings.
Yes.
And it's found on them that have been missing for so much time and put back again. And only 2 people have lived to tell the tale. Is that right, did you say?
No, unfortunately, they haven't lived to tell the tale, but they've asked for it to be checked because they wonder foul play was involved.
Right.
And every time they've asked for this, it's been found in the body. And I reckon that every single person that's gone missing has had this drug in them. But we won't know, will we? We won't know because not all will be, because they haven't been checked for it. Only about 10% ever get checked.
Yeah.
Also, as well, if they've been out clubbing and they've been drinking and they've gone back home and they're not in a national park, but they're near an area where there's boulders and there's water again, and they go missing and they're found weeks later, they've still got 6 units of alcohol in them.
Yeah.
Which means from the last night. But they went missing and the last time they were drinking, it was 3 weeks ago. So how come they still got 6 units of alcohol in their body? Doesn't make sense. No, where have they been for the last 3 weeks?
None of it is making sense. What do you think's going on there, Richard?
It's almost like a time it's almost like they've gone back in time and then forward again. Or forward in time and back again. I don't know.
Yeah, this is right, isn't it? And at the moment, there's what I'm intrigued about is you say correctly that 2 people have survived it, but you couldn't get hold of them because they're not allowed to speak about it.
One was able to.
And what did they say?
Well, unfortunately, he was 6, so we couldn't get an awful lot out of him. He went missing. Cut a long story short, he went missing in one of the national parks. It was, I believe, Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
With his parents. He went missing. Massive search.
Yeah.
He was found 5 days later. No, sorry, I beg your pardon. He was found 3 days later. He was found 36 miles away from where he went missing. 3 days later, 36 miles away. He would have had to have walked through bushes that would have torn you apart, and he was found at a bottom part of a mountain. And basically what had happened was he'd come out of there and he was walking back and somebody saw him. He had no clothes on. He was completely naked.
Oh my gracious.
Alive. No marks on him at all. His bottom of his feet were supple. They weren't feet that where he walked 36 miles. It was almost as if somebody had got him, put him in a car, drove him the 36 miles, looked after him for those 3 days, then let him out again from the car, and then he walked through the bush and they found him. That's what it was like.
What is the staggering stuff, Richard? What is the situation in the United Kingdom regarding this?
Well, I would just tell you actually about the little boy. They asked him, obviously, and like I said, he was only about 5 or 6. Yeah. But he said that a nice bear looked after him. Had boobies. A nice big hairy bear that had boobies looked after him.
Oh, gracious me.
That was it. And they were like, okay.
So we've got on here, Richard, what you've put, 2 million bounty placed on Bigfoot, must be caught alive and unarmed. Is there a connection?
Well, one would assume, yes, on that particular one.
Yeah.
And I will say that there are, with these people missing, there are some differences, but whether there's more than one thing going on here, there was a story of a chap who was with his friends. They're going to go and have a party in the woods where they have one every year. They have a little booze up at the weekend and everything. Yeah. And he said that he couldn't make it, but then anyway they all went and left him behind. Anyway, he phones them up at home. He said, "Oh, hi guys, I can make it now. I'm not doing what I was going to do." And they said, "Oh, come on down. We're in the usual place." So he said, "Okay." So he sets off, and to get to this place, it's in a national park. I can't remember which one it was, but he has to go through another wooded area to get to it. Anyway, he's going through this wooded area, and all of a sudden he hears what he thinks is a twig snapping. So he looks behind, doesn't see anything, carries on, and then he can hear something walking behind him. So he can hear this, okay? So he hears this. And he stops again, looks behind, there's nothing. So he decides to walk a bit faster. Then the feet behind him are walking faster. So then he starts to run, and then this thing behind him is starting to run. So he's thinking, "My God, what is this? What is this?" So he stops and turns. Can't see anything, but there's a big, long grassy area, and it's all been pushed to a side, and there's massive footprints, but he doesn't see anything. But he knows there's something right in front of him, literally feet in front of him. So he looks at it, whatever this thing is. He's looking up wherever it is, in front of him. And then he sort of just says, "Look, leave me alone, please." And then he starts to walk towards it, which is quite daring of him, because he thought, well, what do I do? Either I put my back to it and run and it's going to catch me. If I walk towards it, it may scare him off. And sure enough, the thing turned around and ran off. And he could see that, everything was parting. And I've heard this before, by the way. The grass and all that's parting, and you can see the footprints, but you can't see what it is. So again, it's close.
Yes.
But he said it sounded pretty big, and from the size of the footprints, they were huge. I mean, this thing was massive. So, of course, he then turns around and runs, gets to the area where his friends are, and he doesn't hear any music. And he's thinking, well, they're normally playing the radio. Where are they? And they're not there. And I'm like, oh, you mean I've done all this for nothing? So he has to go all the way back. So he goes all the way back very gingerly, because he has to go back through this wooded area to get to his house. And then he phones his friends up. He doesn't have a cell phone on him, so he gets home and uses his phone, phones his friends up. And they're going, what do you mean? We are here. Aren't you coming? And he said, well, I've just been to the area. And he said the area that he normally go to. He said, yeah, we're there. We've got the car, we've got the stereo on, we've got lager on, come on. So he goes back a second time, and then he sees his friends. So, are we talking about a parallel universe here?
Yeah.
The first time when he was encountering this thing, this predator, he couldn't find his friends. They weren't there. He goes back, and then he comes back and does it all again, and they are there.
You've done your homework, Richard.
This guy was 19 at the time. He's now 47.
Yeah.
He is a policeman.
Wow.
Yeah. So we can take this story as gospel.
And in the UK, Richard, what's the situation regarding this? It's not just America.
No, it's everywhere. Interesting with the UK, apparently, I don't know if you remember these stories, it was recently, a lot of people going missing in Manchester. Do you remember? And they were found, men normally when they are found in water are face down, women are face up. It's to do with the body structure and the bones and how tall they are and so on. And they were all found, these men, because it was only men apparently, were all found face up in these rivers. And they've been missing for weeks. And of course, the areas have been searched time and time again. Say no. And then they're all found again. This is in Manchester.
Yes. I took it with the Britain's MI5 being the equivalent of the FBI. Is it possible that they have, how can I put it? Do you think the British have such a tracking system if somebody's suddenly going missing, or do you think it's just solely the Americans who've got the kit to
that's a good question.
Track?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably we might all have. I don't know. But you see, I could, these spheres that I see in the sky, I know if I told you about them, that they're everywhere and they're drones.
Yeah.
I think they're drones controlled by something else.
Yeah.
Maybe they're following us.
Yeah.
Maybe they've got something to do with it. And then they'll bring in these predators and they'll go, yeah, I want him. And then they'll bring the predator in and they'll grab him, and take him.
And it's very interesting, Richard, considering that.
I was just going to say some of these unfortunate people that obviously most of them, if they are found, I'm afraid they're not alive. Okay, so 99.9% of the time they're not alive. Yeah. But when they are found, they're always usually, this is really strange, they'll have no clothes on, but they are found with their clothes nearby, piled neatly, neatly with their trainers or shoes on top. Everything's folded neatly, their jumpers, their T-shirts, their boxer shorts. And it's something like out of a horror movie. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just coming out of like a Stephen King or something.
Yeah, it's not good. And believe me, Richard, it can get pretty hair-raising out here in the paranormal jungle. Is there any evidence of... this is such a bizarre question, is there any evidence of one of these people going missing with a cell phone and somebody else's cell phone ringing and them going, hello, it's me, I've gone missing?
Right. Well, obviously, when people go into national parks, I'm trying to get the message out to everyone. No one has yet gone missing that have had a locator beacon on them and a firearm. So if you're comfortable taking a firearm, a sidearm, a gun, then if you take that with you and you take a locator beacon, which is basically like a cell phone, but it's just a beacon that shows you where you are, you should be safe. No one has yet gone missing at all with both of those on their persons.
Right.
A gun without a locator beacon, you'll probably go missing. The chances are pretty good. Right. If you've also got a locator beacon on you and you don't have a gun, again, the chances are pretty good you could go missing.
Yeah.
But the cell phone thing is really interesting. There was a story of a young lad, again, he was pretty young, probably about 22, 23, young, in his early 20s. He got lost in a forestry part of America. It wasn't a national park as such, but it was like part of a national park.
Yeah.
And he phones his mum up, and he found a clearing, and there was a road. So he phones his mum up, And he said, Mum, can you come and pick me up? I don't know where I am, but I can describe what I'm seeing. So he starts describing it to his mum, and she thinks she knows where he is. And anyway, they can ping the cell phone to find exactly where he is. So they do that. I think she might have phoned the police. I don't know. But anyway, they ping the cell phone while she's on the phone to him. Yeah, everything's fine. Oh, great. Yeah, we know where you are. Okay. Yeah, I'll come in for you now. It's going to probably take about 3/4 of an hour. Stay where you are. And then he was a very religious guy, never swore or anything like that. Took the, God in vain and all that business. And he goes, Mum, I can see some headlights coming. They're coming towards me. I think it's a car. Oh my God. And then that was it. That was it. That was the last thing he said.
And that was the last thing he said?
Yeah. And when he said, oh my God, as he was saying, oh my God, it went distant. So as if the phone had been taken away from him.
Right.
As he was saying, oh my God, he obviously realised either it wasn't a car or something. And his mother said he would never have said, oh my God. He would never have said that to her on the phone, ever, in a million years. So she knew when that happened that there was something pretty bad.
Really bad happening. Is it happening in Russia as well? The Russians are normally on the ball with all this. In fact, their paranormal warfare unit, Richard, is it's something else. It's called Special Abilities Unit 10,003. And I was going to put it in my book, but there's a copywriting issue around it. But they certainly know their stuff about all this. And I'm wondering, is there any incidents of this in Russia happening then? Is it worldwide?
I think it is worldwide. I mean, I'm concentrating just on America at the moment and Canada. And obviously, when I can, the UK. But yeah, I think it is happening everywhere. I can say it's happening in Romania.
Romania as well.
There's a massive forest. I can't remember the name of it. It is huge. And this chap I was working with years ago, they're all in the army for a while, aren't they? They do a tour in the army. They have to, I think. And he said that he was on sentry, and they heard this noise. So his fellow guard that he was with, because they always work in pairs. He goes, I'm going to go in and check it out. So he goes in. Anyway, he's gone, and he's gone for a long time. And he's thinking, where is he? So he shouts for him. No, doesn't hear anything. He fires a shot, thinking that he'll fire back. Nothing. And after about, because there's wolves in this area as well, so they've got to be careful, which is another reason why they've got the gun. And then all of a sudden, he sees his friend running out of the forest. His hair was white. He went in with black hair. He came out with white hair. He said, I've never seen that before, Richard. His hair literally went white. He couldn't speak. He was just like, they had to phone a medic. They got the doctor in. He was taken away. He doesn't know what happened, but he never saw him again. He never saw him again. Yeah. What the hell did he see in there?
well, indeed so. And it's happening in Manchester of all places. Why there and nowhere else in the UK? Or is it happening, is it UK wide, Richard?
I believe, do you know, Miles Johnson told me something interesting. There's a field in Ireland, and you might know about this field. I don't know. I can't tell you what the name of the field is. I can't remember for the life of me. But there's this field in Ireland. The police know about it. At the bottom of this field, there's like a ditch. Okay? And apparently people are known to go missing in that ditch. Now, he knows a couple, a man and woman, who were holding hands down the bottom of this, where the ditch was. And as he turned to speak to his girlfriend, he thought he was still holding her hand. She was gone. She was gone. He was holding nothing. And then he sort of backs off, and there she is again. And
where did you say she'd been?
And she didn't know she'd gone missing. And he said, where did you go? And she said, what do you mean? And she said, I've been here all the time talking to you. He goes, well, you disappeared. I was talking to you and you disappeared. I turned away for a moment, turned back, and you were gone. I was holding nothing. And she said, no, you were always holding my hand. Are you feeling all right? And he's like, what happened? He was very confused. Yeah. So there you go. Do you know what that reminded me of? Time Slip. Do you remember that TV show? I used to love it. It was a goalpost, wasn't it?
Yes.
At the end of the goalpost, there was, if you went through it, you went into another. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. There are incidents in Bold Street in Liverpool near me
Right.
I live in Southport, where there has been an incident where a guy was walking down the street and suddenly he was in 1950s Liverpool. There has been another incident where somebody else walking down Bold Street and the environment's changed into somewhere back in time. One guy had to have counselling about it. Cut a long story short, there's the story of a shoplifter as well who was running down the street from a security guard, and all of a sudden the reality around him changed, it would appear. They reckon it's to do with electricity substations in the underground network there at Liverpool being in a certain configuration that may cause this phenomena to happen, the Bold Street time slip. I know, Richard, that I was on my 2-meter ham radio set speaking to my fellow radio hams. UFO goes right over the top of me, and it's as if nothing's happened, and yet they're telling me that they were calling me for 10 minutes and had vanished.
Wow.
And so it really does happen. And then there's the other hair-raising bit where you really are up against it and you fear for your safety and the reality around you is warping. As if you're going to go somewhere else. So this is a very real, it is, Richard, it's a very real phenomena, isn't it? And one wonders, in conclusion, what do you think is going on here?
Well, get this. In 2019, 327,516,619 people visited national parks in America.
Right.
National park visitor spending generates more than $41 billion. $41 billion.
Right.
Now, maybe you can see why they don't want to talk about it. Yeah? Why the national parks are a little bit like, yeah, sure, we will give you a list of missing people if you give us $36,000,
Yeah.
I just thought I'd put that in. Oh, and by the way, you cannot fly a drone in any national park in America or Canada. If you do, you get fined $50,000 and you get put in jail for 2 months. Figure that one out.
Something going on, mate, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's something going on, and I hazard a very rough guess what that could be, but you get to a level where, Richard, where you can't say things in public. It's just not safe to do so. And this, listeners, is a very real phenomenon, what Richard's talking about. And sometimes you get to a level with it all where some of it is just not safe to talk about in the public domain. Because A, you don't want to worry people, but B, you're trying to fathom it out yourself, what's going on around you. Tell me, Richard, just in closing, what's the most scariest incident you've had where you thought you might have come close to this, or has anything like that happened to you?
Well, the only thing I can say is my my experience with the Men in Black back in the 90s when I had that. I might have talked to you about that before, where 20 odd men in suits and cars came up to the top of Bleeding Hill where I was with my brother, and there was just 2 of us on our own, and all these cars and all these men in suits, and they didn't say anything. They just got out of their cars and stood by them, and the car in front was a police car that didn't look like a police car, and a policeman didn't look like a policeman, and and I had missing time on that, and that's probably the closest I can say to maybe where I was taken or not. I don't know. I thought my game was up. I thought that was it.
It looks to me, Richard, like you need to write a book, son, because you're on fire at the moment, looking at your Facebook page and all that kind of thing, with your data and your information. You definitely need to get one written. I think there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
You haven't. I'm being purely fit. You haven't had anybody come up to you and go, "Listen, old boy, I'm in the military. This is what's happening with all this people going missing. Shush, hush." But let me tell you, you haven't had that happen.
Not with the missing full one, no. But I have had that with the ufology.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I know. When I was at a conference, somebody came up to me who was a retired civil service lady. I've no doubt a manner, a bearing, very smart, very charming. And she was saying that she worked in a government department, allegedly. I do not know whether this is true. She worked in a government department that dealt with UFOs. She was telling me that she couldn't give a talk like I gave because she'd get heat like you wouldn't believe. But she said this, Richard, she was in this government department, and one thing that bothered her and her colleagues deeply was this stuff, abduction of people, the cattle mutilations, really troubled them. They couldn't get a grip on what it was she was saying. So Richard, listen, this is all we've got time for. You've been an absolutely fascinating guest. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to you, and I hope you'll come back again to the show and give us an update.
I'd love to. Yeah, when I've got more info on it, of course I'll come back.
Yeah. And just in closing as well, Richard, just bring the smack bang up to date. Where are you now with this research currently, just as a matter of interest then?
Well, still obviously delving into trying to see if with the next people that go missing, if there's anything new. But people are going missing literally all the time. This is the thing; it's happening all the time. But I'm still ongoing with it at the moment.
Right? Yeah. Of course, you're still battling on with it, mate. Okay. Well, you need to come back and tell the listeners all about it again. It's been quite a heavy subject to speak about, hasn't it? But thank you very much for coming on the show, Richard. Thank you for appearing on Alien Confidential. I've been your host, Tony Topping. Join us again next week when we ask the question: are the Martians listening to this broadcast?